My name is John Fisher. I'm Chief Executive of CHIC, and I will sort of chair the front end and the back end and just tell you a bit about CHIC in part of this presentation. I have colleagues on the call who will each do a little turn. Luke Hurd, who is our Chief Operating Officer, written from the procurement team, Steve from the Member Services team, Liam from our Strategic Services team, and Mike from the partnerships team. Hiding behind the CHIC webinars logo is Hannah Gould, who's going to steer us through all of this and control the slides. So apologies, but you will hear us saying next slide, please, because it's the easiest way of doing it. And important that we just let you know the session is being recorded, so it can be shared afterwards. So we are probably 2/3 now of the way there of the people we're expecting to join us. So we are going to kick off. Having said welcome, can we have slides, please, Hannah? That's great, thank you. The front slide is what I just said. So welcome. If we can go to the next, which is the agenda for the next hour or so. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about CHIC. Some of you will know this, so apologies if I'm going over old ground, and a bit about the social value dividend that we expect to deliver. Luke will then take you through an overview of the framework that this new framework is replacing, as well as what we're aiming to do with this one. Riton will then talk about the procurement process, and then Liam on specifications and pricing, and then Steve and Mike will come on to talk about how we actually award and manage work under the framework, and then Q&A at the end. So you're very welcome, folks, to put questions into the Q&A function. If you could, feel free to use the chat as well. The Q&A function, we will pick questions up from. We have received a handful in advance of the session. People have asked us to cover, so I will be posing those at the end, whatever. If they get asked again, then you will see them in the Q&A function. So that's going to take us through to probably 12:15, depending on how many questions we have. So thank you for being here and for putting up with us for the next hour or so. Slide, please. Don't worry, trying to take pictures or screenshots of these things. We will send them out to all attendees. And the recording will be available as well if you want it. So thanks, Hannah. So who's listening to us at the moment? We've got a mixture. So I think all of our new framework partners have put, somebody signed up to the session. So quite a lot of organisations. Those numbers we'll share a bit later. But also importantly, some of our CHIC member representatives who will be the users of the framework by expecting to place work with the new supply chain partners, new contractors under the framework. So they're here to listen a bit about it as well, and then some colleagues from the CHIC team who've been involved with the process. So that's who's on the call. Again, questions welcome from all. Thanks, Hannah. So a bit about CHIC. CHIC is as it says on the slide, not-for-profit asset management and procurement consortium, and we work widely across the affordable housing sector. CHIC is governed by a non-executive board of primarily member representatives, so it's important. There's a public sector organisation representing the public sector, governed by the public sector. It's actually managed day to day under a contract by a quite large team now. Some of whom are on this call today, who are the contract is with ARC, which is a consultancy that provides the services to CHIC. And CHIC provides a range of frameworks, but importantly looks to work and partner with supply chain partners on our frameworks and dynamic purchasing system. So we see this very much as an ongoing partnership relationship rather than just us being a route to market for opportunity. Thanks, Hannah. Members, when CHIC started 16 years ago, we had a handful of members in the Midlands. It's now much bigger. I'll come to some numbers in just a second. But you can see from the map that we're now working across the UK, and therefore the frameworks that we procure are UK wide. CHIC, as a not-for-profit consortium, recovers its costs through what we call transaction fees. So every time a piece of work is done through a contract that's called off from a CHIC framework, there's a little fee built into the price that the member pays, which is collected by the contractor and then passed on to CHIC. And that's how we're able to fund the services that we provide. In simple terms, aggregated buying power effectively from members cuts down the amount of procurement activity they have to engage in, and particularly suppliers, contractors have to engage in, and therefore the fee actually brings a return on investment because it creates a more efficient marketplace. So that's why we exist. Thanks, Hannah. Just a few headline numbers you can see for yourself, but we've now got over 300 members working across the UK, some tiny, some huge, lots of supply chain partners, and a lot of different routes to market, all under the sort of asset management heading, and principally focused around housing. Our members collectively manage and own about 3 million homes across the UK. That's 3 out of 5 million social housing homes, affordable housing homes across the UK, so quite a big chunk of the market. Some use us for a very little bit, some use us for quite a lot, so complete mixture within that. Currently, we have over 1,200 call-off contracts that we're working with supply chain partners and members on, with a combined spend value of over 300 million this financial year, growing next year. Really important though, there's an awful lot of small value contracts within that. And we are not discriminatory in any way. Whatever the value of a contract, it is as important to us. So small and large aggregate up to that value. Thanks, Hannah. I've touched on frameworks. Colleagues will pick a bit more about this up in due course. But we have a range of frameworks that collectively aim to deliver what our members need to purchase through contractors and consultants to deliver their asset management services. And that includes materials procurement and merchants procurement as well for those who deliver services in-house. So we'll talk a bit more about this framework specifically in a minute. In terms of how we do it, next please. We want to really set the highest standards, and we were verified 18 months ago for something called the gold standard for our new build framework. This is a high level of expectations set by government through the Cabinet Office. So we are working with Constructing Excellence and through them meeting effectively the Cabinet Office requirements. So an important achievement from our point of view that effectively confirms our procurement transparency and credentials. Thank you, Hannah. Our services are defined under 8 headings. This one, you can see those for yourselves, but is facilities management. Inevitably, some of the work we do in different organisations will be differently described. So we have a whole range of framework and dynamic purchasing system opportunities that sit under the individual services, and sometimes will sit under multiple services. But this is about decoration, and decoration in our mind sits under FM. Thanks, Hannah. Very briefly, the team. I've talked about the board already, mainly independent directors. The orange bit in the middle of this diagram are the people that both members and supply chain partners will have primary engagement with for the placing of work and effectively oversight of work. And Steve, a bit later, will talk about how that works and where people come in. Importantly, though, the marketing function is one we would expect to interact with partners over, and social value, which I will talk about in just a sec. Thanks, Hannah. So social value strategy, really important from our point of view. We work in the social housing sector, and we want people within that sector to benefit from the work we do more widely than just the direct work on their homes and communities. So we pledge 10% of our overall turnover is a return back into social value outcomes, some directly through CHIC, some through our aligned charity. So go on to the next slide, please. Thank you, Hannah. So CHIC is our aligned charity, and as well as the stuff we do directly, I'll come back to through CHIC and through our contractor partners. CHIP, our charity, gets a charitable donation each year from CHIC and delivers direct support to the communities where our members work and operate. And we particularly support individuals who are distant from employment into the workplace. We have an annual fundraising dinner. The picture shows that after the CHIC conference every year. Mike might pick up a bit more about that later on. Thanks, Hannah. The important bit for this presentation is the contractual requirement. Having submitted a compliance application to get on the framework and been selected to the framework and signed a framework agreement, our partners under this framework have agreed a minimum 1% social value return or delivery under any contract which is placed under the framework. It's non-negotiable, has to be delivered. A lot of organisations do much more than that, but it sets a base requirement. Slide, please, Hannah. How? There are lots of ways of doing that. I'm not going to go through them. They're all articulated in the framework agreement, and we can provide more information for anybody who wants it. But we're not saying how it's done. And most reputable organisations working in the contracting industry will do a lot of this stuff anyway, directly and indirectly. Slide, please. What we do is take those examples and then convert the monetary value. So if somebody's doing some volunteering, a number of hours are undertaken, we have to find a way of converting that to a monetary value to say, is that 1% or more being delivered? Slide, please. So to do that, we use the HACT, which is the Housing Association Charitable Trust model. They have a model which takes a whole range of portfolio of potential activities that a company might do and converts it into a monetary value. And that enables us to say, okay, you've got a contract value of X, the monetary value outcome exceed, hopefully meet or exceed that. And that value is calculated through the model by us just putting in the volumes of whatever an organisation has done. So we help and support that. Slide, please, Hannah. And we can then monitor and measure generally on a quarterly basis the value of what's being achieved. So last financial year, this is figures up to the end of June where our financial year finishes. CHIC through the contracts that we support delivered £13 million worth, or our partners delivered £13 million worth of social value. On top of that, we delivered another 20 million directly through our other work. So really important from our point of view and for our members. And we do reports to our members for all of their contracts on the social value outcomes. So if all this stuff is mumbo jumbo for you and you think, what have I signed up to? Don't worry, we can provide support and guidance. We have a social value manager who we're happy to put you in touch with. So please, at the commencement of a contract, if it's not clear, if you're unsure about it, please do get in contact with us so we can give you support from day one. Very, very happy to do so. Thank you, Hannah. And so enough of me. That's a background CHIC and particularly social value. Luke is now going to pick up just the sort of overview of the background to this particular framework. So I will hand over to him and we will carry on through the presentation, handing over to each other. I will see you at the end. So thank you for your patience. Luke.
Thank you, John. Morning all. Hope you're all doing well today. So yeah, I'm the Chief Operating Officer for CHIC. Just for the next sort of couple of minutes, I just want to talk through where we've come from and why we've kind of set up this framework. So if you don't mind, Hannah, just moving to the next slide. Thank you. So CHIC has always had a route to market to deliver decorations. However, the previous iteration of this kind of framework was a sublot within our multiple elements framework. Our multiple elements framework included all forms of asset management building works from the sort of below ground up to the sort of highest levels. sort of the last iteration was awarded within December 2019. And at that time, it was felt that decorations were sort of part of that wider sort of multiple agenda. Since then, we've seen some massive growth in that framework, and in particular, the sublot block 3, which was for the decorations one. We now map and sort of monitor engagement with our frameworks on a framework by framework basis. And we've seen a sort of 20% growth in terms of engagement from our members, as well as the supply chain in supporting decorations and how decoration works are delivered across the sector. What that kind of means is through the previous sort of framework that we had, and just looking at sort of the last financial year, so our financial year runs from July to June, we delivered £37 million worth of decoration works across our 315 members, and we had circa 280 inquiries. Now, not all of those inquiries obviously resulted in a contract, but what it does demonstrate is just the value and breadth that these kind of frameworks do bring to our members. Next slide, please, Hannah. So why have we kind of changed that ever so slightly? So we did some member engagement early doors. Our multiple elements framework was coming up for renewal. That went live a couple of months ago now as a separate framework. And part of that sort of engagement piece from our members and the sort of information we've got back is that members actually would really value a dedicated framework just for decorations. Whilst it can sometimes be programmed into wider planned works and sort of asset investment works, actually decorations is something that they would want to be able to search for and engage with specialisms within this sector much more concisely. So we looked at that and we said, actually, it would be beneficial for CHIC then to be able to offer the dedicated framework, hence why it is now as a separate framework in its own right. As with all of our strategies, we still like to be able to offer a national framework, and one of my colleagues on this call later will just sort of go through the sort of split of the supply chain and where everybody kind of sits around that. The other feedback that we got from the members was the specification that we went out with in 2019 was actually still fit for purpose. It needed some updates in terms of legislation updates that had happened since then, but the core specification and how we approached our specification was deemed to be successful in terms of the ability for our members to call off against contracts and the ability then to manage contracts moving forward. So fundamentally, we didn't change a huge amount with the specification. And again, Liam, our Director of Strategic Services, will kind of talk through some of those amendments a little bit later in this presentation. Ultimately, it is a single lot framework still, which is just designed to deliver all forms of decoration work from individual properties through to communal areas, and is structured in such a way that it can form part of a wider cyclical programme. It can deliver individual one-off repairs to sort of properties and voids, but also can support new build and regeneration schemes as well. So it covers the full length and breadth really of what our members would require. Next slide, please. So a couple of key sort of messages really around the new framework. It was procured under the new Procurement Act 23 as a 4-year national framework, so it was a closed framework. One thing that does impact and will impact on the call-off contracts is because it's under PA 23, there is going to be a requirement for many more notice reporting, which has been built into the not only the framework agreements, which you will all have signed up to now, but also into the operational specifications that were submitted as part of the sort of framework tendering. Please do take time to read them, particularly around the KPIs. There is now mandatory requirement to include KPIs for above threshold contracts. Threshold at the moment for works is set at 4.3 million plus VAT. So it's quite a high threshold for works for mandatory KPIs. Within decoration, I'm not sure how often we might hit that threshold, but it is a possibility that we could do as an individual call-off. And that call-off contract is over the term of the contract, so the threshold is set for the term. So if any of our supply chain partners or members are looking to set up long-term deals with a decorating partner to deliver certainly cyclical repairs or cyclical decoration, that could very well go over threshold and will require KPIs. So we can work with you to define and determine how those KPIs are applied, and more importantly, how we report on them on an annual basis, which again is a mandatory requirement of the PA 23. Just for benefit for everybody, we've got 26 suppliers awarded to this framework, as opposed to 14 suppliers that we had on the previous lot under the multiple elements. So many more new suppliers working with CHIC, which is great, and hopefully a better offering then to the sector. Total estimated value against the framework is 120 million. We did quite a sort of detailed analysis both across our sort of members, 315 members now managing 3 million homes, but also on the throughput we've had through the various frameworks over the years to come up with a nominal value or an estimated value that we put against each of our frameworks. There's quite a detailed calculation that goes on behind the scenes for that, but we've certainly sort of looked at our sector and looked at what the works go through. And we think £120 million over the next 4 years will give us more scope and breadth to deliver the services our members require. As I said, Liam will talk a little bit more around the specification and sort of pricing a little bit later in this presentation, but I just wanted to stress around the flexibility that we build in to the scope of works that we can deliver. It's all about delivering value. It's all about getting the right solution for our members. That doesn't always necessarily mean the cheapest solution. So it's about working with members and suppliers to ensure that what actually happens on the ground delivers effective work for our residents. So that's key to us. So we do operate very flexibly around how we produce our specs and produce our pricing models to enable works to be right sized to deliver the exact outcomes that our members require. Final one for me before I hand over to Ritten is just around sort of direct awards and further competition. On one of John's slides earlier, our strategic approach as CHIC is to not rank our frameworks. Again, that's part of our drive to be able to deliver the right size solutions for our members. And because of that, we are able to do a direct award. So we use business cases. We have quite a strong sort of process in terms of how we evaluate business cases, but it allows works to progress much more smoothly and much quicker from initial market engagement through to actually getting on site and delivering these things, providing the business case stacks up. And within the tender pack, there would have been a quite detailed requirements around a business case and what is necessary to be able to demonstrate a business case is appropriate for call-off contract. On top of that, we also have further competitions. So further competitions or mini comps. We've all kind of been through those processes before. I won't steal too much of Ritten's thunder around those ones. So I'm quite happy to hand over to Ritten. So next slide from you, Hannah, and then Ritten, welcome.
Thank you, Luke. Morning, everyone. My name's Ritten Agira, Senior Procurement Manager at CHIC. So I report to the Head of Strategic Procurement, supporting the business with procuring frameworks and dynamic markets and any other associated activities. So over the next few slides, I'm just going to walk through the procurement journey that we took and the outcome of some of the supplier bids that were returned. Next slide, please. This is our typical procurement journey that we use for frameworks. We've got a gated process, gate 1 to 5, which basically goes through the entire process. So gate 1 is the initial engagement and some of the market engagement and research. So as Luke presented on the previous slide, we'd already done a bit of homework on this, and we had a previous framework called Multiple Elements, which had a sublot for decorations. So that work was already done at gate 1. Gate 2 then involves working with our strategic services team and commercial team and developing specifications and documentation, getting it all prepared and ready, signed off, and then moving on to gate 3 is where we actually publish the tender. So this is launching the tender pack on CHIC sourcing, building the electronic questionnaire, And then once the tender is published, we then look at clarifications received from suppliers and then posting responses, broadcasting them to suppliers where appropriate. And then we move on to gate 4, which is basically all the post-tender and award activities. So this is where we sit down and open all the bids at the deadline. So I think for this one, we published it for about a month and a half. We looked at the suppliers' bids. We had an evaluation panel that marked all the qualitative assessments. Pricing elements were then evaluated by a commercial team, and then we also went on to give the notification to suppliers and then award the outcome and notify them. Lastly, it's gate number 5, which is the framework management and lessons learned. So this is basically where we start to manage the framework, conduct individual call-offs, conducting mini competitions, performance management, and then post-project reviews. We also touch on gate 5 when we come to then re-procure the framework at the end of the term. So coming up to 2025, when the decorations framework ends, we'll then touch on gate 5 to see if there's any further lessons learned. Then we can start gate 1 again for the re-procurement. Next slide, please. This is the basic CHIC sourcing structure, and this is what it looked like when we published on the portal. So we had a tender pack called Invitation to Tender, which contained the ITT, instruction to tenderer. We had a scope of services document, which is basically the specification that was agreed with technical team. I've got a copy of the framework, which is basically the baseline agreement, which suppliers sign, and then a pricing guidance document. The response documents for the suppliers is seen in the green bubble on the left. So we've got an electronic questionnaire which contains the conditions of participation. This is based off a Cabinet Office selection questionnaire called a procurement specific questionnaire. We then have a quality submission section where there's 5 quality questions on the portal. Again, it's digital, so suppliers can submit their answers on the portal. And then there's also a pricing model, which includes a model of tender, a form of tender, which then they can submit as part of their overall bid. In the middle there, number 2, we've got clarifications process during the tender period. So again, that's where we sort of monitor and manage any questions that have come in from bidders, and then we talk to our technical team and issue a response accordingly. And in the middle there, you've got the response documents that are issued by the suppliers as part of their overall bid. Once we've opened the bids, we go through a further round of clarifications and evaluations. Any clarifications are submitted by a commercial team, and we also have a team of evaluation panel who also look at the qualitative bid to determine the most advantageous tender. That's then taken through to a report and award recommendation. And then the last step is an assessment summary. So previously under the previous regulations, it was called an award letter, award notification, but the terminology has changed for PA 23. It's now called an assessment summary, which basically includes the supplier's overall score in terms of pricing and quality. Next slide, please. This slide highlights the evaluation methodology that we used. So there was a 60-40 split on quality and price. We had 5 qualitative questions that covered various topics, as you can see there in the orange bubble and rectangle. So health and safety, methodology for framework delivery, service delivery, quality management, and social value. Here you can see that the higher emphasis was placed on health and safety and quality management, weighted at 15% each. Next slide, please. This is a general procurement timeline. So as per the gated process that I showed you earlier, tender was published on 30th of July. We also posted a notice on the government's Find Tender portal just to make sure that the market was aware. The deadline was for the bids was 17th of September, and we did an evaluation period between 6th and 28th of October. CHIC board approval was then received on 20th of November, so we put forward a report that went to our board, received a sign-off, and then we prepared the assessment summaries, which were then published, observed a standstill as per the regulations, and then the framework went live on 8th of December, and this is where the framework agreements are being signed. And today, obviously, you're joining us on the launch to stakeholders. Next slide, please. This just gives you a breakdown of the number of tenderers received. So we have had quite a good return, 28 returns, and 26 of those were put forward for recommendation. A couple of disqualifications due to various issues, incomplete submissions. We just have to make sure that we've done a compliant tender and the rules are observed. Next slide, please. This just gives you an overview of the geographical spread of the suppliers and the regions that they can cover. So the acronym that you see on the left-hand side, that's something called a UK NUTS code, which is just basically a notification to show which areas are covered. So you can see a good concentration in the southeast and London, and it's good to see some coverage further north in Scotland and Northern Ireland as well. Next slide, please. So this is just a graphical representation of the previous slide, showing you a split of where the suppliers can serve. As Luke mentioned, it's a national framework supplier, national framework, so all of our members can sort of tap into this framework and have the confidence that we can cover all of these areas and the number of suppliers that serve each area. Next slide, please. Breakdown of firms. Really pleased to see that we've had a really good number of micro and SMEs. CHIC prides itself on being able to work with SMEs as well as the larger tier one contractors. So 77% micro and SME and 23% of large contractors where bids were received. Next slide, please. Now, selection of contractors by members. So this could either be via mini competition or direct award. And the number of contractors will be determined by region, locality, scope, and capacity. So if a member has housing stock spread across multiple regions, then we can do a selection based on that and develop a specification that covers lots of regions. Or if the member has very concentrated housing stock, we can use locality and sort of look at specific regions. Scope, again, members may have a cyclical decorations program or ad hoc decoration needs, so we can look at that and incorporate that into the specification. And capacity also looks at which contractors has the capacity to meet the member program and requirements. Again, that's specified in the tender or the direct award business case. Total number of contractors in a region may reduce for a specific project based on the criteria above. CHIC actually does expressions of interest to see what sort of interest is out there in the market. And again, lastly, direct call-offs are permissible based on this criteria where a business case can be justified. Next slide, please. I'll hand you over to Liam, who will take you through the next slides. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ritten. Good morning. I'm Liam Gratty, the Director of Strategic Services, and I lead the commercial, technical and supply chain functions for the business. I'm going to give you a quite concise overview of the specification detail and the pricing structure. Next slide, please. So the specification under this framework is relatively simple. It's one single lot, and it consists all painting and decorating works. It includes for all internal, external painting and decorating and associated cleaning. Typically, The diverse asset types that our members own will be encompassed within this framework, such as occupied and unoccupied domestic premises, communal areas, specialist housing schemes, and commercial and public buildings. And what we will generally see, as we did on our last framework, is call-off contracts are commonly for cyclical and responsive decorations, void property works, new build, so finishing trades, and regeneration projects. Next slide, please. So, as you'll see in the contract documentation, the framework provides a baseline specification, and that encompasses all of the required key performance, quality standards, and delivery standards that are expected by our membership. Our members, as I've said, do manage a diverse range of assets, from small residential, sheltered, and commercial assets and public buildings. And the intention of this framework is to set that baseline. And what's important to consider is that at call-off, members may bring additional or varied requirements to their call-off contract. That means that suppliers will have the opportunity to have that conversation pre-contract and determine which items or elements of work will be deemed beyond the core scope. Next slide, please. So in terms of pricing, the pricing is a typical schedule of rates with standard methods of measurement. It's split into work streams for ease of pricing and call-off. Those schedules are split out into internal decoration for repairs and maintenance, which will include your pre-paint repairs, stop not prime, etc., any joinery repair prior to decks. It also includes rates for internal decoration to new works, external decoration, and other external elements. External elements such as fencing, railings, and the likes. We did include a cleaning schedule within the framework, and that's because commonly members see this as the last trade-in and often require cleaning activities to be undertaken at the end of projects. To just make sure we've got a robust suite of pricing schedules, we also included day works so that we can look at hourly and day rates for supply chain, should they need to be called off for a project, and to ensure that we've got additional coverage where bespoke pricing perhaps isn't appropriate. We call off the NAP-fed schedule of rates where suppliers have been able to apply their plus minus adjustments to those core rates. Next slide, please. So we'll now hand you over to Steve Sharman, our Director of Member Services, and Steve will talk through the call-off provisions and how to award under this framework.
Brilliant. Thank you, Liam. Good morning, everybody. So I'm going to talk you through essentially how to award through the framework, but also just how we deal with an inquiry when it comes in, whether it be from a member or a supply chain partner. So next slide, please. So the first way to award through the framework is a further competition, or mini competition as we call it. So that's basically when we issue a suite of tender documentation out to those suppliers who are on the framework. We may run an expression of interest first. There may be some specific requirements that the member is looking for a supplier to have or to be able to deliver, and we test that by an expression of interest. And it also kind of warms up the supply chain for the opportunity that's about to be tendered. So we'll do that, then we'll issue a range of tender documents which we will work with the member to shape and provide as much or as little support as the member wants us to provide on shaping those documents. Once we've reviewed to make sure we're happy for them to go out in our name as well as the member's name, we'll issue that tender and we'll provide back-end support to the member in terms of evaluation, moderation, and provide a final report. Why do we use it? Generally, it's because the member wants to test the market, value for money. They're under pressure from their executive teams, for example, to test the market and prove value for money. We can prove value for money through direct awards. But it also may be that they don't have a preference or anyone in mind who they want to essentially direct award to, so they will run an open process to those suppliers on the framework. We can run that process depending on time of year, capacity, and also how quick the member is to respond to what they need to present us with. And we can run it within 6 to 8 weeks if it's a very simple basic mini competition. For further complex mini competitions, it takes slightly longer, but we guide the member through the process all the way from start to finish by putting a project team in place with colleagues from our procurement team and our strategic services team in terms of commercial and technical capabilities, along with the head of member services to kind of oversee the project. And then we get to the end result of a contract award and go from there. Next slide, please. So direct award. So these are potentially where a member has an idea of who they would like to direct award to. It may be an incumbent who they would like to continue that relationship if it's successful. It may be that a supplier has been speaking to a member and they would like to bring an opportunity through to the framework, and we'll cover those in a second. Or it may be that a member hasn't got time to run a full-blown tender process. They know what kind of contractor they're looking for. We will kind of run a similar process with a soft market search or soft market engagement to understand resource capability, availability of the supply chain, and help the member kind of filter down to a decision on who to direct award to. And we can do that within a couple of weeks from start to finish, providing, again, everyone involved responds and provides information as and when required in a timely fashion to enable us to do that. And then we can get contracts issued and get contracts mobilised. Next slide, please. So framework use. So from a member's point of view, there are no costs for a member to use the framework directly. In terms of rates, members will pay the rates as per the framework tendered rates. If it's a direct award, there may be some additional rates that aren't captured or the member wants to hone in on. Or we will use the rates of the successful bidder from a mini competition. Those rates will be inclusive of the framework fee, the transaction fee as we call it, which is payable by the supplier on behalf of the member, and it's built into pricing. So there's no separate payments from members. It's all inclusive. Next slide, please. So this is where I talked about a minute ago, where it could be a supplier who brings an opportunity through to the framework. So this graphic here just shows that we can receive inquiries from members, whether that's to direct award specifically or to run a minicomp. We can also receive inquiries through from supply chain partners, contractors, who are, like I say, have been out there. Their business development team have been out, uncovered an opportunity with a potential client. They want to award to you. You need a route to market. What's the easiest route to market? I would say the CHIC framework. Of course, I would. But we like to, believe and we understand that direct awarding through our frameworks is a lot easier and painless than with other frameworks because we don't rank our frameworks, for example. So direct awards can be made to any supplier on the framework, providing there is a business case behind it to justify the award. And my team will work with the member to complete that business case to make sure that it is fully justified and warranted under the terms and the conditions and criteria set out in the framework agreement. But we, like I say, we receive inquiries. And then we make sure, first of all, that the route to market proposed is the correct route to market in terms of making sure that the scope of the framework is adequate to deliver the requirements from the member. And then we work alongside other teams internally to kind of facilitate the contract award, whether that's through a mini comp to arrive at that or a direct award. And then at the back end, my team will provide, if the member opts for it, a managed service and provide kind of ongoing high level contract support, not to manage the contract, but we are there as a kind of a form of mediation in a sense, and to give guidance to the supply chain and the member throughout the course of the contract. Next slide, please. So when I talk about my team, this is essentially my team. There is a team of member services managers who sit behind these people, supporting them. But these are the regional heads of member services, with the addition of the head of development who looks after the development for the whole country. But they essentially are, depending where the member is based in the head office, the main point of contact for a member, regardless of, with the exception of new build, they are the main point of contact for any contract awards that they want to make or any contracts they have through us at the moment where they need to make checks on anything or receive our support. The reason we do that, which is different to a lot of framework providers where you have individual framework managers for each framework, is we want to provide our members with a single kind of main point of contact. So if they don't have to think, oh, who do I need to go to at that framework provider for this contract? It's always the same person as the main point of contact. They may then refer internally to a colleague or need something, some support, and then come back to the member. But it's always essentially through that head of member services. So we build a better relationship with the member. The member, it's nice and simple for them because they know the one person they can always go to. And that works very effectively for us. And also, this map is useful for suppliers because if you, as I said before, if you have a direct award potential from your kind of business development activities, just look to see where that member is based in terms of their head office, and then you can, look at this map and determine which head of member services you need to speak to within my team, who will help you and facilitate that award for you. So that's probably a critical piece of information for suppliers. We do have an inquiries email address, and some contractors will have other contact points, but essentially come to the head of member services first. Next slide, please. So this gives you a breakdown of who our members are. CHIC was born and has always predominantly worked with social housing providers. 71% of our members are housing associations. 25% are local authorities. A lot of those local authorities will have housing stock, but some authorities use our frameworks for some of their commercial properties as well. But we are also open to working with organisations in other sectors, whether that's the blue light sector, the charity sector, education, etc. What we don't do is actively target those sectors because there's still a lot we can offer in terms of housing. However, if a supplier is engaged with, say, an NHS trust, for example, and are asked what frameworks you want that we could award works to you through, then you can quite happily approach us and we will facilitate that for you. Membership is open to all of those organisations, and we facilitate anything that comes into us. We just don't actively target at the moment other sectors. Thank you very much. Next slide. So we're here today talking about the decorations framework and the latest iteration of what we offer for that. But this gives you an overview of other frameworks that we have either in existence already or ones that we need to renew. So on the left-hand side, you can see all of the frameworks that we've awarded, probably I would say in the last 18 months or so. So still very active live frameworks that are on there. Lifts is very live. We actually had the launch event for our lifts framework this afternoon. So that's very new, as is M&E. Fire is a very busy one at the moment, as you can imagine. On the right-hand side is a list of the frameworks that we currently have that we will be looking to renew in the next kind of 6 to 12 months, potentially. Some of those are like the Merchants Framework is out to tender at the moment. We're currently working on a revised offering for compliance, which will probably, more than likely, pull together several of those elements all into one new framework, which is pretty conclusive. And then we've got an aids and adapts one to complete as well, along with the consultancy framework, which will be further enhanced compared to what we offered previously, but that has also been a very successful framework for us. And I believe that is it from me, just to check. Yep. So I will now hand over to Mike Harris, our Head of Partnerships, to talk you through how we manage the framework.
Thank you very much, Steve. Good morning, everyone. Yep, so I'm Mike Harris, Head of Partnerships here at CHIC, and I head up the partnerships team, which is essentially tasked with looking after the suppliers and the contractors on the frameworks and the dynamic purchasing system. So about 1,500 contractors and suppliers that we aim to talk to and to build working relationships with. So I'm just going to quickly talk through the managing of the framework, which really is a framework for yourselves as much as it is procured for our members. So next slide, please, Hannah. So what you'll get from myself and the ever-growing partnerships team is a lot of ongoing dedicated supply chain support. So we will aim to work very closely with yourselves throughout the year. So myself, Lewis, Pauline and Ashley will have regular communication, meetings, supply meetings, site visits, factory tours, and also we do a lot of our work through LinkedIn. So you may have seen us on our CHIC Out and About posts. Also, being awarded to this framework has really sort of helped to establish yourselves in the marketplace, and the framework status can be used in future supporting evidence for future bids. Like I said, we encourage not only the CHIC team to build long-term relationships, but encourage yourselves to build long-term relationships with our members. We also offer the largest dynamic purchasing DPS in the sector, which is another route to market that you guys can explore. And I think, as touched on by Steve there as well, we offer a fair and open procurement. We are completely unranked, which means that there's equal opportunities for our SMEs, which I think Ritten said there was about 70% of this framework are, right through to our principal contractors in terms of being able to be awarded a a direct award. So really overarching sort of message from the partnerships team is that we work with you guys collaboratively and communicate with you as much or as frequently as you would like us to. Next slide, please, Hannah. Just touching on what Steve was talking about in terms of a business case, this is really important for our contractors when they're talking to potential clients, is the importance of how we look at direct awards. So we don't just base on price. So as you can see on the screen, we can take in the following factors as well. So mobilization timescale, the availability of contract facilities and local resources, the integration of your IT systems with the client's IT systems, a detailed knowledge of the installations and the equipment that's required for the project at hand, the framework quality proposals and pricing, and also what you guys can offer in terms of social value, whether it be employment and training opportunities or supporting the local communities. So this is all really important, but if you require any more information on this prior to speaking to a member or client, then please reach out to ourselves. Next slide, please, Anne. You all should have received your supplier onboarding packs. Within that, you will get a lot of useful information. So there will be the official CHIC kite mark for you to use on your social media channels and also on your websites. As touched on by Steve, you'll have a CHIC member service team app and also a member list. The member list can also be found on our website, which is updated periodically as and when new members join. There's a key contact form for you to fill out and send back to us to ensure that we have got all the right names and numbers for the people that we need. Should it be for marketing? Should it be for procurement? Should it be for anything sort of high level? We need to make sure that we've got the right people. Next slide, please, Han. Just a few marketing opportunities that would potentially be of interest for yourselves. We are embarking on a new collaboration with Housing Forum. So we've got a Housing Horizons conference, which will be based in just outside of Euston train station on the 11th of March this year. This will have 2 workshops, one aimed at asset management and one at sort of new development. We're co-hosting with Housing Horizons. We've got a few exhibition stands available. This is our first real foray into an exhibition in the London area. So if you would like to exhibit with us, then please get in contact. And if not, we welcome some delegates, but sort of maximum of two per organisation to come along to this event. Next slide, please, Han. The now, I think, world famous CHIC conference will be running slightly later than usual, so on the 3rd of June this year at Telford International Centre. We still have, again, exhibition stands and sponsorship packages available. This is really aimed at showcasing our supply chain to our members. I think we are looking at around about 800 to 900 delegates through on the day, so a full packed day, lots of good speakers and some fantastic opportunities to speak with our members. Again, if you'd like to exhibit or have some information on this, just please get in contact with myself. Next slide, please, Han. And probably the other one of our big exhibitions is Homes UK, which will be at the end of November this year, where we actively take a large section of the exhibition hall and create a CHIC pavilion where we offer the opportunity for our supply chain partners to exhibit alongside us. We really create sort of a positive buzz, a real sort of networking area within that pavilion. So again, please get in contact if this is something that you would like us to talk to you about. Next slide, please, Anne. And then just finally, really, we have a few more of the framework promotion opportunities that you can see on the screen. We will be exhibiting all of these, so if you are there, then please do come along and speak to us, and we can point you in the direction of any clients or members that we've been speaking to on that day. And also we have our monthly Chit Chat newsletter which goes out, so we have a section in there dedicated to our supply chain partners. So if there's anything you're doing in the sector that is a little bit out there, that's a little bit different, that you're sort of market leaders on, that's educational as opposed to salesy, then please get in contact with me and we can get that put into one of our monthly news articles. Next slide, please. I think that might be everything from me. That's everything from myself. So I'm going to pass it back over to John for any questions that you guys may have. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Mike, and thanks, colleagues, for those presentations. For those listening, I'm aware we've shared an awful lot of information, some of it slightly repetitive, but important points. So thank you very much for your patience during that. We had one question raised in the Q&A. Hannah, can you drop the slides and then ask colleagues to turn their cameras back on, which we answered during the session. So hopefully we've answered that one, and Ritten picked it up in his presentation. But just to go over it again, it was about lots of organisations on the framework. How does CHIC decide which go for a particular opportunity? So if it's a mini comp opportunity, there will be a series of self-selection exercises based on region, and then locality and region, and type and size of project. As one of our colleagues showed, we've got micro companies who are supply chain partners here. We've also got major tier ones. So the size and scale and location of the opportunity will determine some of what you as providers will want to go for and may not want to go for. So we have an opportunity for questions. I had a few submitted before, but a couple have come in. I know, great presentation. Will the slides be available? So thank you for the first one. The second one is, yeah, the slides will be available. Hannah will make sure they're circulated to everybody who attended the call. And if I can just, we've got half a dozen. We'll try and deal with these very quickly. We're well on time, but let you guys get away. First one was, if I've got a contract under CHIC's old multiple elements framework, a decorations contract, I assume, can I extend this under the new one? Steve, can you pick that up, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So providing that the contractor who the contract is with is on the new framework, absolutely we can facilitate pretty much a seamless award through onto the new framework, which will also give the the opportunity to have a bit more longevity on the framework, because obviously it's a new framework, so the contract can run for a lot longer than if we just done an extension through the old framework. So yeah,
it would be a new contract called off
yes.
under the new framework, subject to a business case rather than a simple extension.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you for that. Second one we were sent in was why will a member, we may have answered this already, but I'll deal with it anyway. Why will a member of CHIC choose a mini competition instead of choosing a direct call-off approach? Written, that's a procurement-y question. Can you pick that up, please?
Yeah, sure. So there's a number of reasons why a member would go for a mini competition. So basically, it could be to sort of increase the value for money opportunity, opening up to a bigger market. It also gives the opportunity to publish an EOI prior to the mini competition to see who's interested, and just developing a very bespoke specification, including lots of qualitative questions, which also may include social value initiatives, and gives the opportunity to perhaps increase innovation as well.
Good, thank you, Ren. Hopefully we've covered that. Next one was a bit similar to the first, really. If we've got a contract that's coming to an end with a client who isn't a CHIC member, can we still bring them to you? Sounds like a partnership question to me. Mike, would you respond, please?
Yes, absolutely. They can bring the client to the table, and we can send out a membership pack via DocuSign, which has a few terms and conditions in there that they need to read and then sign, and then get that back over to us. And then, yeah, as soon as that's back and signed off, then they have full access then to our frameworks and dynamic purchasing systems.
Brilliant, thank you for that. A couple more to go. We tendered prices effectively at a point in time, but this is a multiple year framework agreement. So how do they get revisited during that period? It's a nice commercial one. Liam, would you like to pick that up as our commercial guru?
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, so our framework agreements do have a price revision mechanism within them. We will invite suppliers to review and, if appropriate, resubmit their rates on an annual basis into our commercial team. And the commercial team will undertake their necessary due diligence, check it against any CPI increase and market rates, come back with any clarifications if we do identify that there's something is amiss. And then once that process is concluded, we will adopt those as the current market rate from the supplier, and any interaction with members, those rates will be used to inform a contract or a direct award.
Brilliant, thanks. So there will be ongoing commercial interaction between the CHIC team and the suppliers on the framework. Okay, thank you. We have one about KPIs under Procurement Act 2023. So this could be a bit techy for some people, but we know that KPIs now have to be reported under the new Procurement Act. How is that going to apply to contracts which are awarded under this new framework? Luke, can you pick up the cerebral one, please?
Yeah, thanks, John. Yeah, so under the new Procurement Act, there is a mandatory requirement to report a suite of KPIs, and this is official reporting, so notices through the new digital platform. For contract awards under a framework that are above threshold. I'll sort of explain that now in a bit more detail. So the current threshold as of January this year is 4.327 million. There's some pounds in that as well, but pretty much 4.327 million. That's plus VAT, so VAT needs to be added on top of that. And as I mentioned earlier, that's for the duration of the contract. Now, under the regulations, there are three KPIs need to be applied to those contracts that we need to report on. What CHIC has done is we've been working with the sector for quite a number of months now to develop a kind of KPI approach, and we've sort of put forward three-tiered KPIs. So tier 1 is going to be framework KPIs, which we will work with you as supply partners to assess and develop over the sort of term of this framework. Level 2 then is the direct call-off KPIs. What we're going to be proposing is a suite of standard sort of KPIs that could be applied to contracts of this nature. We will work with you as supply chain partners and members to agree what they look like at point of call-off, whether direct award or mini competition, and then we can support the member in terms of reporting, the notice reporting, the contract management reporting that's required under the PA23 over the course of the call-off contract. So still ongoing, we're still trying to get our heads fully around it, but we think we've made an awful lot of progress within CHIC. And as I say, come and have a chat to us on a one-to-one basis if you need to know a bit more detail, but we will make sure and support members and suppliers at the point of call off.
Brilliant. Thank you, Luke. I think it's true. We'll be sharing more information across our stakeholders about our suite of KPIs in due course. It's all quite new, this stuff under PA23. Okay, we've had one further question actually posted while we've been talking, which I'm rather hoping Liam has seen because it's going to come your way. So I will read it. How do you see the pricing framework being used most commonly? Are contractors given a property list and asked to price what they see as required against the scheduler rates, validated by the client and then instructed?
Good question. So we have a range of approaches. Some members, there's no kind of clear answer for this. It will be varied. Some members will operate under SORs and NAPFED, depending on the work stream. So you could get a contract that's set up with those SORs and then orders placed and approved prior to undertaking the work. If it's a planned maintenance scheme, then some members may choose an archetypal approach. So ultimately, it will be a standard method of measurement, a standard approach, but it does vary on a member by member basis. However, as the technical and commercial team, we are there to support with those conversations to make sure that the most flexible approach is put in place and the most efficient rates are applied, ensuring that everything complies with the framework rates that were submitted.
Brilliant, thank you. And if Mark, who asked the question, you've got supplementary queries, then do send them in to us directly. Be happy to respond. And then the last one, which I think I'll just answer myself because Steve covered this in his presentation, was from an organisation as we work widely across other sectors, public sector, sort of education and so on. I assume, can we use this framework for them? Although you're a housing consortium, and the answer is yes, absolutely. Any public sector organisation can utilise this framework for the allocation of work, decoration work that's within the scope of the specification. So although we tend to promote what we do to housing organisations who primarily are owning and managing homes of different types, they're commercial buildings, but local authorities, other buildings, or third-party organisations, all absolutely fine. They can join as members, perfectly permissible, and work under this framework can be allocated to them. So if you have clients in other sectors as supply chain partners who you want to continue that relationship with and you need a route to market, then get in touch with Mike and his team, and they'll help work out how that might be able to happen. So, with no other questions, we are 5 minutes ahead of time, which is always good. Can I just end by saying thank you to colleagues for your presentations, particularly thank you to all those who've attended, our member colleagues and new supply chain partner colleagues. Some of you may have been with us before, this may be new for some of you. We really understand how much time and effort your organisations put in to the application for and submission of tender documentation to get onto a framework. You know, it's something that takes time and effort, and we set a fairly high bar. So thank you to you and your colleagues for all the time and effort into that. This is really where the proper relationship starts. We want to work together and make sure you get as many opportunities over the life of the framework as we reasonably can, introduced by members through us, but equally by you as partners through CHIC. So colleagues and I look forward to working with you over the forthcoming years, and hopefully we will next time we see you, we'll be at one of the conferences that Mike talked about. So thank you. Have a good rest of the day.